Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime, here at my next Star Wars comic review. This is going to be my review for Star Wars Obi Wan and Anakin, issue number 1. This actually came out last week, but I only managed to pick it up this week. But anyway, yeah, new series, one I've been pretty excited for once I heard it was announced. And obviously as a big fan of like prequel era stuff, this is very interesting to me, especially stuff that's set before the Clone Wars like this is. So since it's an issue 1, let's go through some of the creative team. So our writer here is Charles Soule, S-O-U-L-E. Artist slash cover artist is Marco Cicchetto. Colors by Andres Mosa. And letterer is VC's Joe Carmagna. And yeah, we have a kind of summary about basically the setup for this. Obi Wan and Anakin Part 1. It's a time of peace in the galaxy. For 1,000 years, the Mystic Jedi Order has served as peacekeeper of the Republic, maintaining peace in the service of the Galactic Senate. Obi-Wan achieved the title of Jedi Knight after defeating the Sith who killed his master, the noble Qui-Gon Jinn. To honor Qui-Gon's dying wish, Obi-Wan has taken Anakin Skywalker as his Padawan, training him in the ways of the Jedi. Several years have passed since Anakin began his studies in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. He has proven to be stronger in the Force than any child trained in generations. However, Anakin and Obi-Wan have both begun to question their roles in the destiny of the Force. They have embarked upon a mission to the far reaches of the galaxy to respond to a distress call, a mission that could change everything for them both. So really interesting setup here, just establishing that, okay, we're a couple of years after episode 1. I think just judging by the kind of ages of the characters just off the cover and like stuff like that, as we'll get into, it seems to be almost, I'd say, about halfway between episode 1 and 2. So it's an interesting time period that, you know, a couple of other like books have covered. Stuff like Star Wars Rogue Planet is much earlier in Anakin's training even than this, I think. There's Outbound Flight, which I think is probably closer to this time period, and that sort of thing. And yeah, just the idea that both are questioning their roles in the destiny of the Force, and as we'll see in the comic, questioning the Jedi Order a little bit. So some really interesting stuff going on here, and Obi-Wan's my favourite character, and I've always liked Anakin Skywalker, so two characters I really like, and the time period I like, so this was set up to be something I liked from the get-go, and overall, I thought this issue was pretty good. Like, in terms of the main plot of ultimately what the series is going to be about, the plot-wise, it wasn't great. Character-wise, really good. Like the conversation between Anakin and Obi-Wan, the little flashback scene that we get here, excellent stuff. With regards to the mystery, the distress call plot, you don't get a massive amount on. There's a little mystery set up at the end, and like clearly issue 2 is going to much clearer address the plot. But this is definitely a setup issue, and you're more interested probably in the character stuff coming out of this than the plot, but as I said, the plot stuff is still to come. So let's go through this comic kind of roughly page by page. The planet they're heading to is called Carnelian 4, so Cornelion, and we see Obi-Wan and Anakin on their ship piloting it into the planet, but there's a huge debris field. There's like various kind of satellites and bits of junk debris all up in space, and basically they're going down. As they get closer to the planet's surface, we kind of cut down there to see two of the inhabitants basically look up at the ship crashing, and they call this a sky gift. And I think these two that we see here are probably the two characters that are revealed at the very end of the book, as we'll get into. But anyway, they kind of crash land. I think a creature or something like that jumps on them as well and further helps with the crashing of the ship. They escape in an escape pod, and that's pretty badly damaged. And that's when we got our first dialogue. Obi-Wan and Anakin step out, and it's revealed that Obi-Wan was the one piloting the ship, not Anakin. So that's pretty interesting, given that we know that Anakin is the amazing pilot. Though primarily through the stuff in episode 2 and 3, but primarily episode 1 in terms of a pod racer, and a little bit with him and the Naboo starfighter. But it's still interesting that Kenobi, the one who doesn't like to fly, was the one piloting here. But Anakin basically says, you know, there's nothing you could have done to avoid the crash. I've never seen such a dense debris field around the planet. I don't think even Plo Koon could have gotten a T6 through it safely. So Really like the reference to Plo Koon as basically being one of the best pilots in the Jedi Order. I suppose it just shows that Anakin is not quite there yet in terms of piloting, and I suppose we might see him fly later on in this series, but over the years he gradually becomes the best pilot in the Order, surpassing the likes of Saesee Tiin and Plo Koon. So that's pretty interesting. But yeah. And then Obi-Wan just says, that must be one of the two reasons no one ever comes to this world, the whole debris field. Anakin asks what the other one is, and Obi-Wan they jump down, he uses the Force to clear away some of the kind of smog, revealing basically one of the main cities on the planet to just be in ruins, like the aftermath of like a severe battle, just leaving the place completely abandoned. It says, below the Celadon Sea, the world that was. I suppose that's what the title of the kind of like story arc that we're dealing with now is. The world that was is kind of the name of this issue, I suppose. But yeah, really, really good art here. And yeah, that's when we get one of our most dialogue heavy pages in the entire comic, and it's really interesting stuff what they cover here. It's basically Anakin asks Obi-Wan what happened. Obi-Wan explains that the people on this planet destroyed themselves many generations ago. Anakin asks, why did the Republic allow it? And he just says that the world was not part of the Republic. There was nothing here that the Senate needed. And Anakin obviously questions, and the Jedi, they couldn't do anything to stop this. And he just Obi-Wan has to kind of explain these kind of harsh truths to him that the Jedi Order is under the jurisdiction of the Senate. The same was true when this planet was destroyed. And even if we weren't, there are only 10,000 of us to keep the light of peace alive in the galaxy. The Jedi can guide, we can teach, we can help people to help themselves, but we are not an army. If a people are truly determined to write themselves out of existence, there's little that we can do. So, really interesting, kind of sad irony, I suppose, in some of this, in that they eventually do become the leaders of an army when the Clone Wars kicks off. And it kind of goes to highlight that the Jedi Order, like at this point in time, and effectively over the entire course of like the prequels up until like the Clone Wars, there's only 10,000 of them, and that number I assume goes up and down, but like that's in or around their number that we deal with in the start of the war. So there's only 10,000 Jedi basically in the galaxy. Even less of them, I assume, are masters and knights. Some of them are Padawans, some of them are older people who are just primarily like Jocasta Nu and deal with the archives and stuff like that. So, in terms of battle-ready Jedi, you get the sense that there's not that many of them. And it's just really interesting that they're even addressing this. They're addressing kind of what ultimately becomes the downfall of the Jedi here, that they are this order of people who kind of deal with the advancing their knowledge of the Force, and they're kind of monk-like. They really respect the Force. While the Sith take over the Force and use it to gain power and stuff like that, the Jedi just seek to learn extra knowledge about the Force and let it kind of guide them. And the fact that the Jedi are kind of allied with the Republic in this way, where they are basically treated as like interplanetary kind of a police force almost, but they call themselves peacekeepers, is interesting in that like they can only actively go out and help planets that they're asked to by the Senate government. And again, like there was nothing here that the Senate needed. So if the planet is seen as useless, there's no help sent out to do anything with that. So you could see the problem that Obi-Wan has with this, that he's not a fan of the way this works just as much as Anakin learning this for the first time is. And that's a really kind of fascinating thing here. Yeah, he says, Obi-Wan even says, I don't like it either, but yes, the system is not perfect. And Anakin says, then the system should change. And now he doesn't go into his whole thing for episode 2 where he talks about how, it should be an empire, it should be under the lead of one person who would who can't be questioned and stuff like that. And he's not there yet, but you get the sense that he doesn't fully agree with the way that the Galactic Senate, the Republic, works. And so, as we'll find out later in the comic, the influence of Palpatine starts to then come in, and this want for change gradually morphs into his want for an empire. So lots of subtle setup here coming, and Obi-Wan replies that perhaps someday it will. But yeah, then they're just explaining that, can we not call for help because like our ship crashed, our escape pod crashed, we're kind of stuck on the planet now, and Obi-Wan just says like we're here to provide aid, not request aid ourselves. The only thing a Jedi needs is the Force, and they kind of continue on, and it just says that the mystery here is that the message was curious. The broadcast loop began fairly recently, but it used an archaic phrasing as if sent by a Jedi from centuries ago. And Anakin just says, though, isn't the world meant to be dead, as a giant kind of airship arrives on the scene. Still moving, of course, involved in a kind of air battle between some fighters as well. And Anakin instantly wants to help, but Obi-Wan says, of course, Anakin, but not without this. And he hands Anakin his lightsaber. So, like, instantly, when I first saw this page without reading it, I was just like, why does Obi-Wan have Anakin's lightsaber? Did he do something like wrong in like the last mission and he's kind of took it away from him? Like he is fairly early on in his training. But we get the really interesting thing here of Anakin saying, Master, I meant what I said, and Obi-Wan interrupts him and says, about leaving the Order, if that is what you truly wish to do, then I would like you to be alive to do it, Anakin. Take your lightsaber, Padawan. So Anakin has... the idea that we get here has handed his lightsaber over to Obi-Wan and has basically said that at the most opportune time, I want to leave the Order. Now, we don't get the full reasoning behind this, but it's interesting that he really believes that he wants to leave. Now, we sort of get a little bit of an explanation for that, but not fully. I don't think this is in any way the full reasoning for it. But we then cut to a flashback back on Coruscant in the Jedi Temple. It would seem like it's basically just prior to this, because it doesn't seem like Anakin is like really young here. It seems like this is potentially just before they left to go on this mission to this planet. And we see a lot of the other pupils around the age of Anakin watching Anakin in a sparring session against a droid that he's programmed in lightsaber combat. And overlooking them are Mace Windu, Obi-Wan, and Chancellor Palpatine. And basically Palpatine is like impressed that he's kind of taken to lightsaber combat pretty well. Mace Windu, as ever, is kind of very judgmental of Anakin is in terms of like anything he does differently, he kind of questions it. But eventually seeing that he's being watched over by so many of the people he kind of respects and wants them to respect him, he turns the settings of the droid up and onto a different setting, effectively mirroring Darth Maul's style of lightsaber combat, as you see here. He just switches it, and the thing takes on the form of a Zabrak, uses a double-bladed lightsaber, and so on. Mace questions this, and Obi-Wan explains that Anakin has been asking me about my fight with the Sith on Naboo. Very detailed questions. I assumed it was just a natural curiosity. I had no idea he would use it. Palpatine, on the other hand, is like really impressed by this. Like, wow, he's trying to impress all of you by like programming this training droid in a different way. Like, this is impressive, and you get the kind of Sidious kind of style impressive bit there on his own, as he's really beginning to see a lot of potential in this guy. Like, we knew that he was focused on Anakin at the end of episode 1, and especially looking back on the reveal that eventually Palpatine is Sidious. He's like interested in Anakin because he can sense how strong he is in the Force, but he doesn't know the full story about like Qui-Gon suspecting like he is like the chosen one and stuff like that. But now he's really beginning to get that sense. But anyway, Anakin very quickly like defeats this droid even with the Darth Maul training program. But then some of the other Padawans start to kind of make fun of Anakin, saying like he may be good with a lightsaber, but it doesn't mean he'll make a good Jedi. After all, he's a slave to his emotions. It's obvious. And then they keep saying, they emphasize, just a slave. So clearly it's become knowledge around the temple that Anakin used to be a slave. And Anakin doesn't take very kindly to this and uses the Force to grab the two Padawans' lightsabers, activates them while still holding them there with the Force, and ask them, tell me, what emotion are you feeling right now? Obi-Wan jumps down, but Anakin instantly kind of turns it off, hands the lightsabers back and apologizes, saying that he's aware that he does need to get control of his emotions. And, it's just reiterated, if you didn't remember, obviously, episode 1, Mace saying, his education is complicated, he came to us later than we would have ordinarily have liked. Obi-Wan took on an extremely difficult task when he accepted Anakin as Padawan. And then most interestingly of all, perhaps from the entire comic, is this, we get the sense that this is where the kind of one-on-one sessions between Anakin and Palpatine start from. Palpatine says, "Send him to me, I may be able to help. I may not look like it, but I was once his age, and I feel a special connection to the boy after his assistance with the Naboo blockade some years ago." And he says, young Skywalker is a Jedi, is he not? The Jedi are under the Senate's jurisdiction, and as the Chancellor of the Senate, basically he just says, like, I have control here, like, I can talk to him if I want, and Mace has to kind of reluctantly agree. It's kind of playing off the scene the scene just prior to that, where they're talking about the fact that the Jedi are basically, all of their missions are tasked to them by the Senate. And so once again, they can even get like these personal meetings as well, Palpatine. We all know it's for ultimately much more kind of devious kind of plans this time, but just the general idea is there. So Anakin takes the lightsaber and they kind of go down to see what's happening with this ship that looks like it's crashing, and it's basically just revealed that it is a full-on kind of dogfight in the air between these kind of airships, a lot of blaster fire and stuff like that, and one of the ships is about to go down. They both use the Force to kind of stop the, kind of slow down the crash. Two people on one of the ships jump out, and Anakin and Obi-Wan kind of help them to survive the fall. Yeah, basically they're just like helping them up. You know, their ship is destroyed. The other ship seems to temporarily go away, and then they just reveal themselves. You know, like, my name's Anakin Skywalker. This is my master Obi-Wan. And then the younger girl here says, "I'm Kalara, and this is my mother Pran." And basically, she pulls out two blasters and has them trained on the two Jedi. And she says to him, "Are you open or closed? Answer or die." Anakin, taken aback by this, just says, "What are you talking about? We're Jedi. We're here because we got a call for help. Someone on this planet was requesting Jedi aid." The two, mother and daughter, I assume, based on what they say, look at each other and are like, "What in the green hells is a Jedi?" As we're left kind of confused that the Jedi are like known all across the galaxy. Like, they're pretty well known, even in like Tatooine and stuff like that. People are aware of who Jedi are. But these people on this planet don't have any idea who they are. So really interesting concepts here. And then the people on this planet, you can see they sort of have tattoos on their faces, across the eye there for her, and then on the side of the head for the younger girl. So it's sort of interesting in terms of going forward. Like, I would assume that Anakin and this girl will perhaps form some sort of a friendship where Obi-Wan will direct most of his conversation at the older woman, but it's an interesting just idea that, like, these characters are introduced, and like the main mystery coming out of this is like not so much like what's happening with the distress beacon, but rather how did these people not know who the Jedi are? So obviously this is a planet that the Jedi haven't been to in so long because they've never been allowed or requested help here until now. So it leaves the question, like, okay, if apparently the inhabitants of this planet don't know who the Jedi are, but there's been a distress beacon, who on the planet does know who the Jedi are and what's going on? Like, this planet was thought destroyed completely, like wiped out of existence effectively. So what is going on? I really like that. There is a mystery on this planet about the people on it, the nature of the planet itself, why the Obi-Wan and Anakin were called there in the first place. Plus, you have the interesting character stuff of, primarily on Anakin, why exactly he decided to say to Obi-Wan that he wants to leave the Jedi Order. Why, after saying that, has he been sent on this mission? And then Obi-Wan also seems to be dealing with some doubt about how the Republic handle things as well. So, really fascinating. A lot of stuff to happen there between, obviously, like, we know Episode 2, Anakin remains with the Jedi Order, but at some point during this comic, does he, like, full on leave? Does he want to stay on this planet, maybe? What exactly happens here, and what really brings him back into play? So I assume it perhaps will link into somewhat of this, that he doesn't like being teased about the fact that he's a slave and the fact that he's treated so differently than everyone else, because it wasn't his fault that, like, he wasn't discovered until then and stuff like that. So it could be just something as simple as that he would prefer to not have to suffer the abuse from all the other Padawans and go and help people on his own. Perhaps it does relate to the way he feels about the Republic, and that he doesn't like to just leave people that he knows need his help, but he can't do it because of politics and stuff like that. It could be the sense of that, but again, I think this flashback will be explored a little bit more, and we'll get the full reveal on where it's come into Anakin's mind that he really wants to leave, and especially how Obi-Wan seems to be handling that, and that he's keeping Anakin's lightsaber with him. He's kind of taking the lead of the mission. He's piloting on Anakin, and he's still teaching Anakin about stuff, but there seems to be a little bit of distance between the two. So there's a lot of development still to come. I'm a big fan of what they're doing here in the comic. As I said, they could have, I think, advanced the overall plot a lot more and not left on such a kind of weird, mysterious cliffhanger. But I'm interested to read issue 2 like straight away, just to find out what's going on with the planet and the stuff with the characters. So I was very impressed with this issue. I'm glad, obviously Disney going forward, they're not just completely abandoning prequel stuff, and that they are like addressing other open time periods like this in between episode 1 and 2, one of the least explored ones in my opinion at least. So like really cool stuff. There's obviously stuff that they can tie it in with in terms of episode 1 and 2, but in general it's a fairly open time period that we don't know a lot about, and I'm excited for this comic series. So I highly recommend Obi-Wan and Anakin issue number 1. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the issue or the review. Other than that, thanks for watching this video, and bye.